continues. But I'm going to join now the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Dr. Alwyn Hales. Dr. Hales, so good to have you on the hotline.
Yes, good morning.
Morning and
happy to be here.
Happy New Year to you. Good to have you.
Same to you.
You are aware of the issues surrounding the Transport Authority at the moment?
Yes.
And your awareness stems from what?
Well, just by way of background, a few months ago, the previous managing director had tendered his resignation, citing several concerns. Then I was advised that it was withdrawn, and then finally, I think his contract ended. The board of directors decided to appoint somebody to act in the interim while they went out for the recruitment of the new managing director. By way of a letter that was sent by the chairman to the minister, I recognize that somebody was recommended by the minister, which on the recruitment exercise did not perform up to the standard required based on the assessment of the panelists. And the chairman advised the minister that beginning today, he is putting a new managing director in place. So I wrote a letter to the chairman, just advising him of the process and of that I would like, as the accounting officer and the permanent secretary, to just review the process, because in the interim we have seen a number of comments coming in and concerns being expressed by persons. Nevertheless, we have a fiduciary and statutory responsibility to review the process to ensure that the process was in keeping with the requirement, and also that the appointment, the contract itself, meets the guidelines of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. So I think they're having a board meeting today to discuss that letter, and following on that, we will hear the outcome of it.
Okay.
In the interim, I've heard of, things in the media about clash or discrepancy between the minister and the chairman.
Yes.
And in that the minister is insisting that they employs somebody of his choice, while the chairman or the board has taken a course that is different from that that was proposed by the minister.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, in a nutshell, that is my that is the information I have. I'm awaiting the response to the letter, and then we'll see how we go from here.
All right. So let's just go back a little bit for my understanding. So you said so Willard Hilton resigned. His contract came to an end and he didn't renew. This was in December of 2022. Yeah?
Right.
The board decided to appoint someone to act.
Right.
Who is that person?
He was the manager of the finance division. I don't remember his name offhand.
Okay, so manager.
But he's currently acting, yes.
Manager of finance division.
I learned that recently, by the way, because for some reason does not always communicate with the parent ministry very well. And, I really should know.
Yes.
Who is acting at all times.
Yes.
And so the relationship between the board and the ministry has not been as good as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, the board has, on many occasions, the chairman acted without necessarily informing the ministry. Even when the resignation of Mr. Hilton was withdrawn, we weren't aware of it. I had to call in Mr. Hilton to find out what's happening. I had to call in the chairman to find out what is happening. So the communication has not been very good.
Right. So the person who is a manager of finance division who was appointed acting.
He was acting, right.
It's not an appointment. Yes.
It's an acting pending a recruitment process.
Right. So was he one of the 8 people interviewed by the board for replacing Willard Hilton, from your understanding?
No. Well, the board actually interviewed 7 persons.
7? Okay. So
They
was
shortlisted 8 and 1 person withdrawn.
And he was not one of them.
By my understanding, he was not one of them. I'm not sure if he was an applicant because there were several applicants who were not shortlisted.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned that there's a letter from the chairman to the minister on the recruitment exercise.
Right.
And this letter was about, when was it sent?
This letter came to the minister on Monday. It was dated the 30th of December, but it was received by the minister on Monday.
This is the 2nd of January 2023?
It would have been the 2nd of January, yes.
This is by email?
It came, I'm not sure it's by email, but I saw the original of the letter. And the minister showed it to me, and basically all he said to me was that he needs my advice. I must consult with and give him my advice. That's all he said. He has never said anything that to me about insisting that the panel be overturned or anything like that.
Yes.
Because I know he relies heavily on my advice.
Okay. So
I would only advise him in accordance with government procedure.
And
because whatever we create in the ministry is a matter of record that is going to be seen by the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance and any other bodies that regulate and monitor what goes on in the ministry and its agencies.
Right. So the essence of the letter from the chairman of the board, and that is Joseph Shakir, right?
Joseph Shakir, yes.
The essence of that letter, which you saw on the 2nd of January when the minister handed it to you.
No, I saw it on the 3rd.
You saw it on the 3rd. It was dated the 2nd of January, though, yeah?
It was dated the 30th of December.
30th of December, but you saw it on the 3rd. Okay.
I saw it on the 3rd of January. Basically, so I would have been learning the new managing director is coming on board on the 6th of January.
That's today?
That's today, yes.
Mm-hmm. And did they say who the new MD is to be?
Yes.
Who is that?
It's a Mr. Smith. I don't remember if it's Ransford, but Mr. Smith.
It's a Ralston.
Ralston Smith, yes.
Right. And this Ralston Smith, is he the same person who is the Western Regional Office Manager?
Well, I think substantively he's the Western Regional Office Manager. He was also appointed to act at some stage in the Northern region as well.
Right. So as a result of the minister handing that letter to you and asking you to advise him, you then did what?
Well, having read the letter, first of all, I was taken aback in the sense that all of this happened at the authority, and an appointment would have been decided by unanimously, and the ministry did not get a chance to carry out its responsibility in terms of reviewing and setting the contract. So I wrote to the managing director, to the chairman, observing and outlining the process, and which are creatures of policies, and that he delayed the appointment, delayed the assumption of duty, and allowed the ministry to get a chance to review. And I requested some documents, which included the draft contract document, the resume of the shortlisted, the application of the shortlisted person. And I have already got the document, the score of the scores allocated by the panelists. And I also spoke, as a result of that, I also spoke to the chairman. The chairman was expressing concern when I spoke to him about about imposition of a person on the board, and I told him no, that's not how we operate in the ministry, and there's nothing about an imposition. I am intervening in order to ensure that the ministry does its review and basically endorse endorse or otherwise the decision of the board.
Your letter is dated when?
My letter is dated. I'm not in office right now. I think my letter is either the 3rd or the 4th
of January.
Today is the 6th. Yes, I think it's dated either the 3rd or the 4th. I don't have the date offhand.
Just hold a moment.
And I spoke to the chairman before I sent the letter.
I heard. All right. Just hold on a moment. We'll come back from this break. Dr. Alwyn Hale, Permanent Secretary in Transport. Back in a moment. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the hotline talking with the Permanent Secretary in Transport Ministry, Dr. Alwyn Hale, who has just outlined and filled out some crucial details in the sequence of events leading now to a meeting of the Board of the Transport Authority, this surrounding the appointment of a new managing director to replace Willard Hilton, whose contract came to an end in December of 2022 and who did not renew or seek to renew that contract. So, Dr. Hales, in that 3rd or 4th of January letter, you're telling us that you asked the chairman of the Transport Authority Board, Mr. Shukair, to delay the assumption of office of the person that the board chose.
Right.
And I understand you asked him to delay it until sometime in February of 2023?
Delayed for a month, yes.
What's the magic of the month that you ask for the delay? What's the reason for that time period?
It's the time that I think we would need to, as I said, the ministry needs to do the to review. But remember, at the end of the day, the letter is a matter of record.
Yes, I understand that.
Something that can be, but to review the process and the contract itself.
Can you please send me a copy of that letter?
Sure.
And did you state in it that you expect a cabinet reshuffle to take place by February? I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened. We lost Dr. Hales. We're going to reconnect with him. So let me pull back some things I said in my earlier commentary based on better information now available. Because we now have confirmation, and I did say this when I came back from the break, we now have confirmation from the Permanent Secretary that the letter to the chairman of the Board of the Transport Authority in relation to the appointment of a new managing director is a letter that was penned by the Permanent Secretary and sent to the chairman. So the minister is not the person who wrote the letter. Yes, sorry about that, Dr. Hales. We lost you.
Yeah.
Did you mention in your letter to the chairman something about a cabinet reshuffle?
No.
Did you mention that you expect a new board to be in place in February?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's fine.
And I hear a lot of rumors circulating, but no.
That's fine. Now, we don't have any interest in the rumors, so I'm happy we have you here and that you're going to send the letter and we can see what's there.
Sure.
This letter that you wrote on the 3rd or the 4th of January, did you discuss the contents of the letter with the minister who asked for your advice before you sent the letter to the chairman of the board?
No, but I did copy the minister.
And how did you copy it? Did you send it by email or send it by hard copy to the minister?
The minister would have received a hard copy at the day after. The chairman got it initially by email, and also we sent it to the office of the Transport Authority through the the acting managing director.
Right. And then now, the basis on which you say you wrote to the chairman to ask him to delay the process is...
Well, it's not delay the process per se, but the assumption of duty.
Yes.
Of the,
on what statutory basis does the permanent secretary act in requesting such a delay of the board of the Transport Authority? What gives you the power in law to do that?
The power to do that stem from several policies and also documents that we would have, and also based on historical review by the Auditor General and other governing bodies. It's not an exercise of power, though, because the board can refuse to do so.
No,
and
no,
Mr. Shukir told me that.
No, I understand what the board can do. What I'm trying to understand from you as the chief accounting officer, and I thank you for making yourself available.
Mm-hmm.
The policy that you're saying gives you the power to act.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the law that empowers any minister to make such a policy to give the permanent secretary that power to act? Because I don't think you have any power unless there's a power given to you in law. Can you point me to a section in the Transport Authority Act, for example, that gives you that power? Do you know of it?
No, the Transport Authority Act wouldn't give the permanent secretary any power. The only thing that the permanent secretary was named in the act as an ex officio member of the board, which by policy that is not even implemented anymore.
Yes.
So the Transport Authority Act doesn't give the permanent secretary any power. The Transport Authority Act says that the authority can appoint anybody that is fit and at whatever remuneration is fit to carry out the duties.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act.
Yes.
Overall general guideline in terms of how we go about doing these things, and also the Ministry of Finance has guidelines about the contractual provision for the appointment of heads of agencies. Now, I must tell you, we have had issues in the past. Because of poorly written contracts that we had either terminated persons and the authority ended up having to pay them to the end of the contract, or having difficulty terminating persons. There was even one instance where somebody was appointed, received their letter of appointment, and before the person even assumed duty, there was either a change of mind or whatever it happened, and consequently it resulted in a lawsuit that cost the Transport Authority. So it's really exercising a responsibility as accounting officer of the Ministry of Transport and Mines to ensure that we do not enter into situations that could end up costing the government and end up also costing the Transport Authority. So we don't have a line in the Transport Authority Act that says, but as I said, we have Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act, we have Corporate Governance Framework, and we also have the general responsibility as accounting officer to ensure that whatever any entity within the ministry is doing, it is done in accordance with due process and in accordance with the policies that exist.
Did you, in your 3rd or 4th of January letter to the chairman of the board, set out, as you have told me, your overall management of what goes on based on the statutes that you do, corporate governance framework?
No, I did not go into those details, no.
Right. And you mentioned that there could be issues with the contract, which I understand, and there are
I'm not saying
guidelines.
that. I didn't say that there could be issues with this contract, but generally speaking, we vet contracts of MDs. The ministry vet those contracts.
Before
And
the
if we have
contracts are signed by the
before they are
intended recipient.
signed. And if we have an issue, we write to the Ministry of Finance, outline that this entity is about to enter into a contract. This entity, we have concerns about so-and-so, and with this person, and the Ministry of Finance may respond. And if indeed the contract is, there are instances where we may even have to write to the Attorney General of the party just to take a look at the contract.
Right.
So it's not usually a rush thing. And normally you interview, and usually, but because the person is internal, I guess you can transition, and the person could even have been sent to act pending the conclusion of the recruitment process. So it is somewhat unusual that you would have done the interview and immediately drift into an appointment without the ministry even being aware. I understand, Mr. Shukir is very clear in his interpretation of the Transport Authority that the board does not have, as far as he's concerned, the board doesn't have to comply with anything from the permanent secretary, and the board doesn't have to inform the permanent secretary of anything, and they do what they do, and they do what they do, but they are part of a ministry.
Yes.
And there are responsibilities that falls on the permanent secretary.
So Mr. Shakir has been the chairman of this board for how long now?
6 years.
And all that you're telling me, where the Transport Authority, the board functions within the remit of the Transport Authority Act, but there are wider statutory provisions that would give permanent secretaries, superintendents, override what goes on. Some kind.
Yes.
Did you ever outline this to this chairman who has been there for 6 years to guide him?
Every chairman has to attend what we call some kind of a workshop. Every chairman is provided with all of the documents.
Yes.
That pertains, and all of the ministry finance circulars that pertain. And at the start of their tenure, board members are invited to a seminar or workshop. We have with a presenter from Ministry of Finance, presenter from any other relevant body that would present to them, their duties, their responsibilities as far as assuming that role in the organization is concerned.
So in your view, how would you describe the action of this board in taking the decision to appoint Mr. Ralston Smith to the position effective today, and in writing to the minister to indicate to him their decision without you, the permanent secretary, knowing about it? How would you describe that?
I would find it highly irregular and highly unusual, to say the least. And not only indicating to the minister, but advising the minister that that they are prepared. That the chairman, in the last line of the letter, says that he can have his resignation. So,
who can have whose resignation?
The minister can have the chairman's resignation. That's what he said to the minister in that letter.
In the December 30th letter?
Yes.
Have his resignation for what?
If he does not agree with the decision of the board.
But how did that arise?
It did not have to come to this, as I said. If he was having an issue with the minister, in terms of, if it is that the minister was insisting, and I'm not so aware, that they put an individual in there, call the permanent secretary, have a little discussion, I could easily have dispelled that and with a conversation with the minister. It's not how we do it. The board has a statutory responsibility. There are processes, and if there's a problem with anybody that the board has selected, it has to be dealt with in a transparent manner. There's nothing wrong with a minister recommending, but at the end of the day, it's the board's responsibility.
Just hold on a moment. The permanent secretary in the Transport Minister, Dr. Alwyn Hales. A lot of things are being said here, listeners. Let's just take a break. Come back with you in a moment. We're back with you on the hotline, listeners. This is becoming, as I said, curiouser and curiouser. We're hearing from the permanent secretary that not only did the current chairman of the board of the Transport Authority write to Minister Shaw in a letter dated the 30th of December 2022 and inform him that Ralston Smith is to be made the managing director of the Transport Authority as at today's date, the 6th of January 2023. But we're also being told that in that letter, the chairman of the board, Mr. Joseph Shukir, told the minister that if he does not agree with the decision to appoint Ralston Smith, then the minister can have his, that is Joseph Shukir's, resignation from the board. So Dr. Hales, is it that do you understand that Mr. Shaw preferred and expressed a desire to have Ronald Anderson as the managing director of the Transport Authority at any point in time?
Well, I was not aware of that preference. I only surmised it from Mr. Shukir's letter.
What in the letter made you surmise that?
Because Mr. Shukir in his letter said that they are not in agreement with the recommendation for the minister or whatever they have determined by the recruitment process.
Mm-hmm.
By virtue of that, they don't agree with the recommendation from the minister, and therefore, and that was where he mentioned the thing about the resignation. So on inquiry, I surmised that. But as I said, we operate in the ministry based on due process, and our recommendation to act actually was what Mr. Shukir said in the letter. So there might have been a recommendation to act.
Recommendation by whom, for whom to act?
No, the implication of Mr. Shukir's letter was that the minister might have recommended that Mr. Anderson act as managing director.
Oh.
I see the word act in the letter. So
you have that letter there with you?
No, I don't have it here with me. As I said, I'm out in the country. I'm speaking to you from
that's fine. Yes.
On location. I am visiting a site in the country right now.
Yeah. So when you wrote your letter on the 3rd or the 4th of January and requested the draft contract documents, application of the people shortlisted, and you also spoke with the chairman, did you not ask him in what form, in what medium did the minister make the recommendation for Ronald Anderson to act? No,
I did not ask him about that. I did not go into the Ronald Anderson thing, because to my mind it is, I did not want to go into that. I just wanted to ensure, based on the document that was supplied to me, that the process was fair, and that the ministry would be in a position to give it no objection, and they can proceed to do the appointment.
Yes. I see a section in the law that says the minister may, after consultation with the chairman, give the authority directions of a general character,
yes,
as to the policy to be followed in the performance of its functions in relation to matters appearing to him to concern the public interest. But I don't know that it takes away from the statutory power given to the authority to appoint and the whole general framework that you're going to. But I cite that to say, why wouldn't you as permanent secretary even be so concerned as to say to the chairman, this thing of a recommendation that you have spoken about in your letter coming from the minister, can you give me some more information about when and in what form this information came from the minister to you.
I just didn't do that, and you know, I hear you, and it may well have, in hindsight, been something that I might have done, but I didn't.
Yes, and in the time that this
and I don't want to cloud the issue with that, because, as I said, a process I've been entered into in accordance with the Transport Authority Act, yes, and I am just wanting to ensure that all the I's and the T's are dotted and crossed, and that we can move forward.
But you being an ex officio member of the board, does that mean that you don't sit?
No, I don't sit on the board. We permanent secretary don't sit on board anymore by virtue of government policy, and over which they have
superintendents.
Now, we should have gone through and changed all of laws, and I think they were being changed, or changes have been drafted. It is not even clear to me whether the one for the Transport Authority, because we just amended the Act recently to be in sync with the Road Traffic Act, whether that change was made. So we do have I do have a representative on the board, but I don't sit as a member.
Who is your representative on the board?
My representative on the board is my director of project, is Shernette Sampson.
Shernette Sampson. So, didn't Shernette Sampson inform you of the process of interviews taking place?
Shernette wasn't a member of the panel. No, the decision of the board. First of all, you must remember, as I said, it happened suddenly. I didn't have a chance to have any discussion whatsoever with Ms. Sampson. And indeed, with persons in the ministry, I only had discussion with the chairman, having seen the letter that he had sent to the minister.
So you say Ms. Sampson, who is the permanent secretary's representative on the board, was not a part of the interviewing panel for the seven people?
No, man, no. Yes, she wasn't a part of the panel. There was a panel that comprised of 4 board members and 1 person from the Office of the Services Commission.
So it's not the full board that did that?
No, the full board wouldn't do the panel. They would appoint a panel of interviewers.
Okay.
Which normally would have some members from the board, maybe somebody from HR, but in this instance, I think the HR manager was also a candidate. And also, if, the ministry is kept in the loop, the ministry would have recommended also that a representative from the ministry be a part of the panel.
Yes.
But there was no rep from the ministry and the panel.
But when did you come into knowledge that this process was taking place? The interviewing?
I did not know what was happening until I saw the letter from the ministry. I mean the letter from the chairman to the minister.
Yes.
And maybe I should have known, because there are other provisions in the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act and so forth about board minutes being sent to the PS on a regular basis, and also that the PS be kept informed of what is happening in the entity.
Were you sent those minutes?
I have not checked on that yet. I have a unit that monitors the receipt of minutes from the various entities, so I have not had a chance to check whether the minutes of the Transport Authority Board, the one that made the decision to appoint, I would not have seen that. And I didn't ask for it in the letter because I said it might delay the process, because the board just made the decision, and it could be weeks before the minutes are prepared.
So from where you sit, the minister himself, do you say that there was any attempt at ministerial interference in the appointment of a managing director at the transport?
I would not say that. I am not saying that the minister might not have made a recommendation, and the board acted. The board considered the recommendation, and indeed included, whether it's because of the recommendation or not, they included the candidate because the person applied as any other candidate in the shortlist. Nothing is wrong with the minister making such a recommendation. And the minister may even express concern about a candidate, which he has not, based on information that he may have. You know, it could be security information, it could be other kind of information. There are, for instance, requirements that public officers at certain levels should not be politically active. It doesn't mean you can't have a political view, but if you are a member of a political organization, for instance, and you're active, then it compromises your position as a head or leader of an agency. Mm-hmm. Other things like these can crop up, and I have been around now from 1996 as permanent secretary, and for transport from 1998, and I've seen instances and times when, unfortunately, a minister may fail to act because of the politics of the situation. Mm-hmm. I remember we recruited an MD for an agency, and although the person apparently was of the same persuasion of the minister said he has to express he was not willing to support it because it might appear as if he's planting his person in there. And it did not go through. It did not. That appointment on that occasion didn't go through.
Yes.
But we do have all kind of situations.
Interesting. I need a couple more minutes with your PS. Let me call you right back after the headlines. There are a couple more questions I must ask, and we thank you so much. We'll call you back. It's headlines time. Permanent Secretary in Transport, Joseph Shakir. We're gonna need to talk to you. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the hotline. We are on to the developments in the transport ministry, particularly related to the Transport Authority. And we are rejoining the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Dr. Alwyn Hales. Dr. Hales?
Yes.
I find it a bit strange that you say you were sort of taken by surprise with the I suppose the speed and the course of action of the board in how they've gone about appointing and notifying the minister of the appointment of somebody who is to commence acting today by their letter to the minister. Mm-hmm. One, you knew a critical post was vacant, right? This managing director post.
Yes.
Because you must have known that the contract of Willard Hilton would come to an end in December.
Yes.
And am I not correct that this is a position that has to be advertised?
Well, it should be advertised, yes. Best practice would indicate that it is advertised.
And it was advertised in October and November of last year.
Yes.
And I think the applicants were given until about the 8th of November to put in their applications.
Yes.
And so, is it also the practice that after the applications go in, a decision will be made within 6 to 8 weeks for the replacement or the filling of that position?
Well, the time period, it depends. But I would not be specific on the time period.
But the period I stated would not be unrealistic?
Wouldn't be unrealistic, no.
Right. So if you knew all of those things, why did you not anticipate that the board would be seeking to carry out its statutory mandate to fill the position of managing director?
Of course, I'm fully aware that the board will be seeking to carry out its statutory mandate.
So how were you taken by surprise with them acting according to that mandate?
Because they have not advised me of it. They have not kept me in the loop. As the accounting officer, as I said, there are certain things that is done at the ministry level, and we were not kept in the loop where that is concerned.
And your board representative, Sharnette Sampson, you said, did not inform you about what was happening on the board in relation to filling the post of managing director?
No.
Have you since had word with her as to why you didn't get those briefings?
No.
Why not?
And in fairness to her, that's not necessarily her role, but no, I have not had any discussion with her on that.
So now that you have written to the chairman to ask the chairman to stay the assumption of the duty of Ralston Smith,
mm-hmm.
and the chairman, you said, verbally pushed back, expressing his concern imposition.
No, not since he got the letter. I spoke to him before I sent the letter.
Yes.
And I think his pushing back was maybe a presumption or an assumption that I was trying to convince him to act otherwise than what was determined by the board and in the recruitment, which I assured him I was not.
What is it that you said to him that would cause him to form that presumption?
Well, I simply said to him that I'll be writing him a letter concerning. I expressed my concern about not being advised what was happening, and that I'll be writing him a letter to request some information, and also to delay the assumption of duties.
Mm-hmm.
And he simply said to me, yes. And he asked, what if the board can refuse to do this? And I said, well, I am not legal advisor for the board. You can determine that.
So, that being said orally, and then you sent the letter to him, did he respond to your letter at all?
No, I haven't had a response to the letter.
So, the board is meeting now.
Yes.
Is your representative of the board at that meeting?
I don't know.
Why not?
I just don't know. I don't normally check on attendees at board meetings. I would expect that she is, because my representative, their attendance record is normally very good. And I would imagine all the members. It's short notice, but to the extent that they're available, then the members will be there. It's an important meeting, and I think she's there.
Hold on a second. Hold on again. Let me just take a quick break. Back with you in a moment. Thank you, listeners. We're back with you on the hotline. So, what happens now if the board says to you, Dr. Hales, as permanent secretary, our appointment of Ralston Smith stands?
If the board says that to me, then the appointment stands.
Do you understand that they have already written to Ralston Smith, indicating that he is the selectee? Dr. Hales?
Okay.
Your line is breaking just a little bit. Is it your understanding that they have written to the selectee, Ralston Smith, indicating to him that he is the appointee? I think your line went a bit funny just now because you did say you are...
I have not said.
I'm so sorry. We'll just reconnect. I did try to reach Minister Shaw this morning, and I didn't get Minister Shaw. But his permanent secretary in his ministry has given us the sequence of events in this. Dr. Hales, thank you so much for rejoining us. What happens, you say? Are you aware as to whether Ralston Smith has been notified that he is the appointee for the managing director position?
I am not aware, no.
And you say if you were to receive a letter today from the board to say they're going forward?
If I were to receive a letter from the board to say they are going forward, then they go forward, and whatever consequence arises from that arises. and I'm not going to speculate now. We are talking about a public servant who has given over 27 years service to the authority. Are you there?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Dr. Hills.
Yes. So I'm not going to speculate, and I expect that the ministry will still go through with its check, and everything may pan out, and it's fine. There may be issues that arise. I do not know, and I do not want to speculate on any issue that may arise. But if the board decides I'm going forward with it, and then they go forward with it.
Yeah.
And if any issue arises, then we'll deal with it as time goes by.
But what of the issue that you highlighted, which is this sort of lacuna, this gap between the board and the ministry, where you don't seem to be aware as to what the board is doing, even though you have statutory superintendents over what goes on at the board, though they also have the power under the Transport Authority Act to do some things. What are your concerns with that, and what you're going to do about it?
When statutory bodies are established, one of the things was to enable them to have the power and the autonomy to take decisions and to act without having the intervention of ministries at every juncture. Over time, protocols have been established as to how the body relates to the ministry, and simply copy letters, for instance, to place, and among other things that can keep the ministry in the loop. As you said, the ministry have a responsibility for superintendents, and we exercise the responsibility based on the information that is on hand. And as we become aware of stuff, we'd rather be proactive rather than reactive, but in some instances, we end up having to react.
Right. Well, information just coming to hand, Dr. Hales. The meeting has ended with the board of the Transport Authority, and it is my best information that the appointment stands.
Okay. You mean the appointment beginning today stands?
Yes.
So the board will communicate that to me, which means that come Monday morning, I am communicating with a new managing director, and the ministry will have to take, and as far as this process is concerned, but the ministry is still doing its due diligence in terms of the process.
Yes.
And the contract itself that is being that would have been signed between the chairman of the board and the applicant.
All right. Thank you.
I must point out, however,
yes,
in closing, that a number of attempts have been made by personnel, whether from the authority or otherwise, to tarnish the minister as being, interfering, and also failure to carry out responsibilities that should have been carried out. I'd have seen that from the outgoing MP. I don't think it is fair. I think the minister relies a lot on us in the ministry for doing some of the administrative activities and for advice. And I would not encourage persons to take too seriously some of the attempts that have been made to sully the reputation or the actions of the ministry, the minister, and the ministry plays a very strong hand in the interaction between the authority and the minister.
And you, as permanent secretary, you don't think you are being used by the minister to carry out the wishes of the minister?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, great.
All the best to you, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Dr. Alwyn Hale. Massive developments, listeners. 11:25 a.m., the Ministry of Transport, its Chief Accounting Officer, at some kind of loggerhead with the Board of the Transport Authority, an entity which falls under the ministry. And I can tell you now that coming out of the meeting, which ended about 4 or 5 minutes ago, where the Transport Authority Board convened as a result of this letter sent by the Permanent Secretary to the Chairman of the Board, asking the Chairman of the Board and the Board to delay the assumption of duty of the intended Managing Director, Ralston Smith, until sometime in February. The Board has acted in absolute revolt against this request of the Permanent Secretary, and I understand that based on a unanimous vote of all the members present, not the entire composition of the board, as I understand that only E.G. Hunter was not present, but all 10 board members present voted unanimously to confirm the appointment of Ralston Smith, who is the Western Regional Office Manager at the moment of the Transport Authority. He is to be confirmed in the position of Managing Director, and the wishes of the Permanent Secretary have been completely disregarded. The board is of the view that it has done what it needs to do. It has the statutory mandate, and it will not look behind any request from the Permanent Secretary. We can see as well, based on what the Permanent Secretary just told us, that there is a standoff of some sort between the current chairman, Joseph Shakir, and the Minister of Transport, Hawley Shaw. This, as from a letter sent by the chairman of the Transport Authority, the board, Joseph Shakir, dated the 30th of December 2022, to Minister Shaw, advising him that Ralston Smith is to be installed as the new Managing Director as of today, the 6th of January 2023. Mr. Shakir said in the letter that he is prepared to tender his resignation if Mr. Hawley Shaw, as minister, does not agree with the board's intention. And it appears from that letter, according to the Permanent Secretary, that Mr. Shaw, as minister, recommended, either orally or in writing, but in a medium unknown now, Mr. Shaw recommended to Mr. Shakir that Ronald Anderson, it appears, that he should be appointed to act as Managing Director for some undisclosed period of time. So we do not know. But you heard the Permanent Secretary completely dismiss any designation that there has been ministerial interference in what has happened. He said that when the minister received the letter from the board chairman on or around the 2nd of January, the minister passed the letter on to him as Permanent Secretary for his advice and guidance, after which, on or around the 3rd or the 4th of January, he, Dr. Alwyn Hales, decided to write a letter to Joseph Shakir, Chairman of the Transport Authority Board, and to ask him to halt the assumption of duty and to request a number of papers. He said at the time he made those requests in writing, he'd not spoken with the minister to indicate to the minister his course of conduct. Joseph Shakir, we want to hear from you. This is a hotline.